The Phillies walk off in Maton fashion last night against the Cincinnati Reds. Eagles Dolphins joint practice starts today. We're going to look at the Tua, Jalen kind of career trajectory and how it mimics each other a little bit. We got lots to talk about today. Phillies, Eagles, all on the docket. Yo, Training the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. If you're on the YouTube page, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. Drop a comment in the comments section. Helps us build that algorithm as we continue to grow this show. Helps us get us higher on the charts. The more people that watch on YouTube, the more people that comment, like, subscribe. Helps build the show. Helps us get more interactive with the fans as we have always these great conversations every single morning here on the show. I'm Phil Stifler, your host at Beard of Knowledge. I got Jason Voorhees back in the co-host chair at Mustang3651. We got Phillies to talk about. We've got Eagles to talk about this morning. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in, Jason. Phillies win last night, 7-6, dramatic, walk-off fashion. Nick Maton with the big walk-off hit. Gene Segura walks. Bryce Stott pinch hit. Huge double. Almost walked off himself with a home run. And then, Nick Maton comes through with the big hit to win the game. It did not look good to start. Did not look good at all. Nick Lodolo, no hitting the team through 5, was cruising right along again against the Phillies. The Phillies looked lifeless again last night for the first half of the game. And then they did what good teams do, because I can't say they're a great team. They're a good team. They came back and beat a very bad Reds team. Now, Jason, I don't want to be negative. I don't, because they won last night. There's no doubt about it. But I'm going to start the Phillies conversation with this. If the Phillies play like that, we're not even going to talk about the Mets anymore, about against any good team, the Braves, the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Padres, they do not come back to win that game because the good teams will not let them get back into that game. The Phillies are lucky right now that they have a super easy schedule and are able to make these kind of comebacks against a team like this. Is that a fair statement to make?
I mean, it's absolutely fair, and I actually agree with you. The thing I see right now with the Phillies, I think you've seen a stretch where they look like they're just kind of worn down and tired, dude. Like they've had to deal with a lot of adversity, like down the stretch here. Obviously the Mets series took a lot of energy, and they obviously didn't put enough energy in it to make it more of a series. But that being said, I think at this point you just have to tread water this next week, because you're getting Mr. MV3 back, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, what he was able to accomplish down in the minor leagues. But yeah, I think the team, like I said, you're not going to be able to play like this and get away with it. You're right, because good teams will make sure that you pay if you're going to come out and lifeless in the beginning of the game. I do think that this team has an element that you haven't saw from any of the previous Phillies teams in the past 10 years, and that's an ability to come back when you're down. Not just being lifeless, but like the ability to score runs and make a game out of a game that you thought was over. I know we were live tweeting the kind of together and back and forth, and obviously, listen, we got to be honest about the team. They're not playing their best baseball right now.
They are not.
And
they're not playing even really good. They're not even playing close to their best baseball right now.
They're not. So
and I know it comes off as me sounding like a Rob Thompson hater. I'm not a Rob Thompson hater, What I'm a hater of is the people that think he's earned and deserved and done enough already to be the long-term answer at manager. And I just don't, it's funny. And I just literally just popped into my head literally 10 seconds ago. Pete Mackanin was an interim manager and he did okay. He had a little spark, did okay. And then we extended him because everybody's like, Pete Mackanin, he's going to help turn this organization around. And as soon as he became the full-time manager, what happened? Just more of the same. Certain guys are not meant to be the number one leader. They're meant to be backups. They're meant to be assistant coaches. They're meant to be the guy that players can go to instead of the manager when they have an issue. And I just think that that's what Rob Thompson is. He's that guy that he's better suited being in the number 2 chair with a little less pressure on him than the number 1 chair. I mean, we could again, I want to be positive. Nick Maton, huge hit last night. Bryson Stott, a huge pinch hit last night as well. Why wasn't Bryson Stott in the starting lineup last night? I mean, these are the kind of mistakes that Rob Thompson continues to make that I kind of feel like just set him apart a little bit that say he hasn't done enough. Now, can the Bryce Harper spark, which, again, 2 home runs last night, 2 walks. I mean, the guy looks like he's ready to come back right now. No doubt about it. Those sparks are great, but you got to look at the sum of the whole entire picture. And the whole picture says he's good.
See,
and no, hold on real quick before you go. Ed, the analytics on Bryson Stott are not as what you think they are. Since his call back up from his demotion, Bryson Stott's got going into last night's game a 796 OPS against left-handed hitters. So almost 800. It's higher than Nick Castellanos. It's higher than a lot of guys on this team. So that the analytics actually say Bryson Stott can hit left-handed pitching, just so you know, Big Ed. Go ahead, sorry. I wanted to make sure people realize that. I saw that stat before the game, and it really made me even more concerned because the stats actually backed up playing Bryson Stott last night.
So I have to disagree with you because to me, the sum of the parts is going to equal a playoff appearance. And that to me alone, you can't compare Rob Thompson to Mackanin. Mackanin's team never made the playoffs, never even came close to the playoffs. This team is going to make the playoffs, Phil, for the first time in 11 years. I'm confident. I firmly believe they're going to make the playoffs.
I agree.
So
I agree.
I get what your point is, and you're saying, he's always been second fiddle. But listen, I was second fiddle once, and I was given a shot. Like, everyone's got to get a shot. And you can't go by a small sample size and just say, well, he hasn't really been successful, when in reality he has, because this team was dead in the water under Joe Girardi. And you could say whatever you want. You could say, well, it's a spark that would have happened anyway, regardless of who was put into that position. And that's a fair assessment. I understand that. But if this team makes the playoffs, I'm not saying Rob Thompson necessarily deserves to be just automatically named the manager. But I think if they make the playoffs, he definitely deserves consideration to be.
And I am 100% okay with him.
Somebody gets
so after the season, let's see the final results. Let him go in for the interview. Bring in somebody else. Somebody tweeted at me last night. They're like, "Well, who else is out there available?" I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I'm focused on this year. I don't know who's going to be available as a manager next year. But you bring him in, you interview him, you interview 2 or 3 other guys, and then if you come to the conclusion that he's the best of the bunch, sure, I could get behind that. But I can't get behind the people that think right now. And Jason, I don't know how much of yesterday's show you caught with me and Dylan, and I brought it up with Dylan yesterday. You say the Phillies are going to make the playoffs. I agree. I think they're at like 85% likelihood to make that wild card spot right now. But look at the season. What do I talk about in all sports? The Eagles, timing. This year, the timing is right for them to go all in. The timing is right for the Phillies to make the playoffs this year because if you look at it, who really – I mean, you look at it. You got the Brewers, the Giants. They're the only 2 teams on the outside looking in that are remotely even close to pushing the Phillies and the Padres for that last spot. The NL is very, very top heavy with the Dodgers and the Mets and the Braves. And then there's tier A, the Dodgers and the Mets. Then and the Braves, I guess, maybe in that tier. And then you got the next tier, the fringe playoff teams, and there's only 4 or 5 teams in that. And then there's a huge gap between those teams and the rest of the NL. So they're going to make the playoffs, but there's no one to really push them, the Brewers, I guess, maybe, to not make the playoffs. So the timing is also right. And you do have to take that into account. It's not like there's 6 teams chasing that last spot. There's 1 team chasing for that last spot.
I mean, listen, I always say go with the best candidate. And
third fiddle. Just remember that. Not second fiddle, Jay. Third fiddle. Just so you know.
Personal note. Thanks. Yeah, I remember those days, Fred. You definitely can't. Yeah, that was some good times, definitely, as Fred says. But yeah, I think I always say go with the best candidate. So yeah, I would definitely be open to bringing other people in for interviews. I'm just saying I think Rob Thompson has done a decent job, more than decent. I think he's done a great job with what he's had to accomplish with this roster, losing Bryce Harper, losing Schwarber for a week and a half, losing the pitching that he's lost. Like, there's been a lot of stuff, man. And this
look,
guy,
and I kind of want to criticize him for the bullpen use the last couple of days. But also on the flip side, I mean, he's lost Knievel. He's lost Sir Anthony Dominguez. I mean, he's literally dropped 2/3 of his bullpen, just like that. So, there's not many, like last night, a lot of people were tweeting, well, why did he leave Alvarado in there for the full 8th inning? Because, he obviously didn't have his best stuff. But what other options did he really have at that point? You know what I mean? So you couldn't use Robertson. You got a bullpen game going today. There weren't many options. So, I don't even want to criticize him for that. But I criticize because we talked about it. You agreed with me 110% when I talked about this past basketball season, taking on the life and the personality of your coach with Glenn Rivers. Yes, see, I didn't say Doc, guys. I still remember to say Glenn. And we agree. And this team has a lifeless energy sometimes. And they're taking on that energy. Rob Thompson, I'm not saying you need to be a flip it over a table kind of guy. Not everybody's a Larry Bowa type manager, but you got to show some emotion.
But once again, Phil, that goes to what I was saying yesterday. Baseball's different in that aspect than basketball. Baseball,
we talked about it with Joe Girardi, the lifeless energy of Joe Girardi.
Baseball, listen, it's one thing to have your manager as your leader, but if you're looking for that type of leadership, that needs to come from a player in this team. And that player is MV3. That's the player that drives this bus as far as the energy level. So you can say
baseball teams need more than one. Jim Fergosi went.
I got you, but that's not Rob Thompson's fault per se. That's who's going to step up. Like, I look at guys like that the Phillies have. So you would think that Kyle Schwarber would fit that. I know he's still
one of those guys. He's not good enough at it, but
I swore to my life that Nick Castellanos would be that guy, and he's been not only a disappointment in what he's done offensively, but he's just been a disappointment. Period. I thought he would be that vocal leader, but I don't know. Like Aaron Nola, he's a quiet guy. I don't see Aaron Nola ever being a vocal leader. He's just not.
Are pitchers ever leaders, really, though?
Like guys like Max Scherzer are, and guys like Justin Verlander is a huge leader. Justin Verlander might be probably the epitome of a pitcher that's a great leader.
Right.
Because he backs it up. I mean, look what he's doing at 45. Well,
that's fair.
40 years old.
He feels like he's like 50. I feel like he's been in baseball for 35 years now.
I can't believe he's going to win another Cy Young. It's unbelievable, dude.
It's really insane what he's like. I told you, like in like April or May or whenever he first started getting hot, I'm like, I didn't even know he was back in baseball. You know what I mean? Because I figured he retired 5 years ago at this point. Look, the other thing with the energy last night, again, a huge win energizes the crowd. But the fact that they needed to have that come from behind win, against a Reds team, we've been talking on this show and this network. Everybody's been talking on this network and on all networks about the attendance issues. I mean, having to fight and claw to come back, getting no hit for 5 innings against a guy like Lodolo, who actually seems like he has some potential to be a really good pitcher. I don't want to take anything away from him. I watched all of his first start against the Phillies. I watched all of last night's start. That kid's got potential there. In my mind, I don't know where he ranked in their farm system or in baseball's farm system, but I think that kid's got some potential to be a pitcher in this league. But that energy, that the fact that you're playing the Reds and you have to fight and claw to come back, that your manager doesn't put your young star and Bryce in the starting lineup, that's not going to attract fans to the stadium either.
I mean, everyone loves to point out. I see a lot of people on Twitter doing this, pointing out like the attendance that the Phillies had in 2007 through 11. Yeah, but dude, it didn't just start automatically. That it kind of grew and grew and grew, and obviously 08.
I had season tickets in 07. I talked about it on Phillies pregame live last night. In the beginning of that season, I was at the game when Ryan Howard in 07 hit a walk-off home run against the Marlins in extra innings, and the ball landed like 2 seats over from me. That stadium had 10,000, 12,000 people in it, and this was in 2007. Yeah, no, and I get that, but they're not doing themselves any favors. Like, look, Bryson Stott's the young star on this team. He should be front and center, focal point. It's not like he needs days off at this point.
But he has been. I mean, I think I get what you're saying, that he should play every game. But listen, dude, everyone needs a break here and there. Like, I'm not against giving a guy a
break occasionally, but,
a day off.
I played 157, 160 games. You got a young kid that's 22 years old or whatever age he is. You focus on him. That draws crowds in.
I'm not disagreeing, but I think we're grasping at straws if we're saying that we're upset that Bryson Stott wasn't in the lineup, and that's the reason why this team didn't get fans.
Well, I'm not saying that's why the team isn't, whatever. I'm saying that's part of the reason maybe why they didn't, do better.
I can tell you, I'm going to give you three reasons why I believe that the fans still aren't there. Is A, the team's been bad for so long that they're taking a wait and see approach, and that's okay. People that say that makes them front runners, that's bullshit. I've been in that stadium when the team sucked. Don't tell me that I'm a front runner. I'm not going to games right now because I can't afford it. I got to be honest with you.
If you're going to make that investment, you're going to do it for a team that is a little bit better.
I can't afford it, and it's not that the tickets are expensive. It's the experience of going to a game. It's the gas money that you have to pay to go to the game. It's the tickets. It's the food.
We went to a game with my man Brett, who follows us on Twitter and watches on Twitter. He brought us on he had extra tickets one night, and the two of us went. I drove. You paid for parking. Both of us spent how much money that night on free tickets? I mean, I
bought a dime on the ticket.
What's that?
We didn't spend a dime on the ticket.
We didn't spend a dime on the ticket, but we spent money on parking.
Oh yeah, so I'd say about $100 each.
I know my Italian sausage Hatfield sandwich and fries was $25. The beers, and I get that $25 for parking.
Well, I know, and
compared to Eagles and Sixers games, $25 for parking is a steal.
No, and then someone's going to tell you, the trolls out there will say, "Well, then don't eat. Just go to the game." Like,
look, so Jason, I made this point last night on pregame live. When the Phillies were selling out that stadium, it took them getting good. It took end of 07 when the stadium started to get packed. And who was packing that stadium? 20, 22. I was 26 at the time. They were packing the stadium. Where are all those people now? They all got families. They want to go, but they can't bring their 3 kids and their wife to the game. It's too expensive. You need the 20 to 25-year-olds to start packing that stadium again. What's going to get the younger audience excited? A playoff team. Bryce Harper, playoff team. A deep run. Come September, mid-September, Bryce Harper's hitting home runs. We're locked into a playoff spot. Guess what? That attendance is going to start ticking up. Now, unfortunately, the way baseball works, that first round of the playoffs, we're not going to get a home playoff game. That's going to suck. But if we get a home playoff game and you put 45,000 fans in there and all the young people are there and energized, it becomes the cool thing to do again. Once it's the cool thing to do again, then next year it'll carry over. Oh, remember how much fun we had that Phillies game? Let's go again. So that's what's going to pack the crowd. I don't want to spend 3 hours on the Phillies in attendance. I want to talk for fun for a little bit about the Phillies. You watched the game last night, right?
Some of it. Back and
What
forth.
did you think of the left field bleacher announce team last night? All 4 guys, Ben Davis, Ruben Amaro, John Kruk, and Tom McCarthy, all sitting in left field. First off, I got to call out Tom McCarthy, and John Kruk did it mid-game. There was a foul ball behind home plate or off to the first base side, and Kruk said, yo, to Tom McCarthy, because Tom McCarthy put his glove on thinking it was coming to the outfield when it went the opposite direction in the foul territory. Loved that. But what were your thoughts on that? Because I kind of get into a feeling that John Kruk and Tom McCarthy have too much fun on telecast on a nightly basis and don't talk enough baseball. The ratio is not right there. But in that situation last night with all 4 of them BSing and having fun, it was very enjoyable last night. But I don't appreciate, like, Tom McCarthy, John Kruk have that kind of a atmosphere towards a game every single night they call a game, whereas Ben Davis and Ruben Amaro balance it out a little bit better on their nights. Did you enjoy last night?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's different.
I was at some of these college nights, Freddie. I was there for some of those fights.
I'm sure Phil was one of the guys doing the aggressor.
I am not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter, Jason.
I know you're a hugger.
No, I'm not a hugger. I'm a fist pound. I don't hug anybody. Yeah, I run the opposite direction of fights. But go on.
I mean, I like it. I think it brings another element to the game. I think it's cool to see the announcers out with the crowd. I mean, it would be like us doing it. Could you imagine us doing like this at a Phillies game in the stadium? Like, that would be cool. Yeah. I just think it brings another element to what we do. Like, the actual broadcast of the game.
Another element to why I rather watch the game at home than at the stadium. Because I had fun last night watching the game. You know what I mean? A fun that cost me. I had some fried rice last night, and I had two Coronas last night, and it cost me nothing extra. It was just what was in my fridge. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, like I said, dude, we could talk till we're blue in the face about the attendance, but you nailed it. You nailed it. You were there in 2007, and you just pretty much put that rumor to bed by saying that early in that season there wasn't a lot of attendance. It didn't happen until that end of the year stretch where they kind of went on that run. And then 2008 even really didn't start out hot and heavy to the point where it was like where it was in October. I mean, it's a buildup. And this team will get there. But yeah, you got to get over the mark first. Like, let's get into the playoffs, and then you can start maybe chastising people for not going to games. At this point, I'm not chastising anybody for not going to games when gas prices are still over $4. People are, still a lot of people don't have jobs that lost them owners from business from COVID. I mean, there's a lot of stuff still going on that people are failing to acknowledge. Like, you can't just criticize somebody if you don't know their circumstances. That's all I'm saying in the whole thing.
Is there anywhere else you'd like to see the announce crew call a baseball game? Like, I'd like to see them set up shop in the dugout.
Well, they've done it in left field. I think last year they did it at third base.
They've done it by the
I'd
ball.
Like to see it at home plate.
They have done it behind home plate before.
Oh,
One
okay.
time, 3 or 4 years ago, they did it behind home plate. I want to see them in the dugout. Inside the dugout. So the Kyle Schwarber back and forth with them last night was hilarious. But I want to see all the players constantly going by and causing trouble.
Harassing them.
Yeah, harassing them and stuff like that. I think that would bring a fun element. It would also bring the element of you might get to see some more of the personality of some of these players. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, it needs to be in the 700 level of the vet with the rowdy drunks that used to be up there for sure. So real quick, let's wrap up the Phillies talk. Today is game 3 of this 4-game series. Can they win the series tonight? And B, I know there's a lot of issues with this team right now, especially pitching and injuries and stuff like that. Is Rob Thompson making the right decision? Is this the moment? Because we're going with Chris Sanchez and we're basically doing a bullpen game today. Because of the issues. Oh, this is a great one. I meant to say this one too. Inside the bullpen would be an awesome place because relief pitchers have some wacko personalities and you get some great television moments by doing it in the bullpen. Absolutely. Are they picking the right moment? Because they're trying to give the starters, Nola, Wheeler, everybody's had some rough turns to the rotation lately. They're trying to give these guys a little extra break, an extra day off. But is this the right moment? The Reds are a type of a team where I don't know who would have gone tonight, Wheeler or Nola. They could get right against the Reds. And B, you don't have the bullpen pieces to do a bullpen game. So maybe in a week or so, when Sir Anthony's back, maybe in a week or so, when you figured out how to replace Corey Knievel, maybe that would be the opportunity to give everybody an extra day off. I'm kind of thinking this might not be the moment to push everybody starts back.
I think I have the counter argument. I think it is the right time because if you wait that long, you wait a week or two, you're getting eerily close to that time where it's so important. And you have a guy miss a start at that point. I don't know. Like, when I don't think any time is really a good time to not have Nola or
I'm looking at the schedule. The Phillies have their rotation set through the start of the San Francisco series. You got Sanchez going tonight, so you got Nola tomorrow. So it would have been Nola today, Wheeler tomorrow. You got the third game against Pittsburgh this weekend where Pittsburgh's throwing a bullpen game. Maybe that's the choice. Maybe you do it then. You let Nola and Wheeler pitch against this Reds team. Right. I don't know.
Did anybody ask Rob Thompson that? Like, did any reporters ask him why?
He said he was doing it because he wanted to give Nola and Wheeler an extra day because they struggled their last couple times on the bump. So he's flat out said that.
Okay. I don't think it's.
Yeah, I'm not saying
it's terrible.
I'm just worried because of the bullpen itself.
You're talking about the timing of it.
Yeah, the timing. Like, I'm fine giving those guys an extra blow. We're going to need them in that first round of the playoffs. I'm fine with all that. I'm just concerned about the timing of it because we've literally burned our bullpen so much lately, and we're missing so many pieces. But I still think that even with a bullpen game, again, even if we come out flat, it's not like I said last night. I put in that tweet, not that this game is over. We still can come back and win this game. I was still just concerned with how the first 5 innings went. Even if we go 5 shutout innings to start tonight against a Reds team, there's no doubt in my mind that we can come back, and we do win this game today. It's just I want to see more life and energy from this team.
Well, you don't have much longer to wait. MV3's back.
Dude.
And
we got this really good prospect down there in AAA. I wonder if the Phillies will try to hold off on his service time a little bit and save a few bucks on service time there. Or should they call up that top prospect that hit 2 home runs last night?
Did you see the energy they had last night? That might have been the most packed that stadium was.
Tickets on StubHub for the AAA game were going higher average price than the tickets for the Phillies game last night. That's bad. That's so bad. Jason, in retail, now is your time to get back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving. Does your boss want to give you time off now? Never. There's no such thing as time off. All right, let's transition. That's enough Phillies. Let's wash our hands of the Phillies, okay? No more. Bye-bye. Gone. All right? We'll talk more Phillies later this week. Let's get it to the Eagles now because the Eagles are going up against the Dolphins, joint practices today, tomorrow. Then they'll have Friday off, Saturday, final preseason game against the Dolphins. Real quick, first off and foremost, I assume that the same thing is going to happen. We are going to see no starters on Saturday night. Nick Sirianni was very clear that the joint practices last week were enough. They got enough film and footage of their starters in those joint practices where there's no need to put the risk of Jalen Hurts or A.J. Brown or any of those guys in that preseason game there. Do you agree with that? That we're probably not going to see anybody on Saturday again.
I agree. I don't want to see it.
I would be really surprised. Really surprised.
I think I've seen enough already with Hurts and what he's done in these joint practices to realize that I'm excited about what we have. And everybody that I hear reporting, like, and I'm not talking about the trolls. I'm talking about the real legit reporters, guys like Chris Franklin, guys that we trust.
Right. Yeah.
They all have positive, reviews on Jalen Hurts. So that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, before we get into the joint practices, before we get into the Eagles and some of the things we're going to learn, actually, this is it. There's a lot of guys on a roster bubble right now. So we're going to learn a lot, who's going to make the team, who's not. But I want to, Hurts is elite, and I want to talk about that for a second because Jalen Hurts, now, hold on. I can never say his name unless I look at it. Tua Tagovailoa. I still screw up. Hurts versus Tua. Their career has been linked for so long. And the type of quarterbacks they are is kind of similar. And their trajectory and their team trajectory is so similar. You got Tua was Hurts' backup at Alabama. Then Hurts gets hurt. Tua takes over. Jalen Hurts goes to Oklahoma to get back into starting, which, just so you know, I've said it before, I was against that. I thought they should have put Hurts back as starter over Tua at Alabama. Then they play in the playoffs against each other in college. They both get drafted. Tua, obviously, in the first round. Hurts in the second. They're both not good enough quarterbacks because they run too much. They're not the most accurate, whatever. Both their teams last year go out and draft stud rookie wide receivers. This offseason, A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill get signed big contracts to try to really see what they've got. Their careers really do go in the same direction. Mason, we've talked about the Kareem Hunt. I don't think so. If he gets cut, maybe they pick him up, but I'm not trading assets. We're going to touch on the Kareem Hunt trade, though, later in the show. So I want to bring up some idiot asinine reporting later on the show. But Hurts and Tua, career trending in the same direction to an extent. Has either of them, I know you don't really watch as much Miami Dolphins as Eagles, but can you see one being further along than the other to any extent at this point?
I mean, I think if you look back at last year, I think Jalen Hurts is further along in his progression. I think they both have similar ceilings and floors. I know, Tua was a lot more highly regarded coming out of college. Before obviously that injury is really what set him back. I mean, he would have been a legit, probably a top, if not the top 5 pick in the whole NFL.
Did he end up in the top 10 or 12? Where was he drafted? I don't even remember off the top of my head.
I thought it was in maybe 10th, but I don't have it. I don't follow him enough to know. Yeah. If Aaron was watching, he'd be able to comment. Figures he's not watching the show. But yeah, I think, like I said, they're both similar. I think the crazy similarity that I see is the fact of so many people saying what they can't do. Like, I hear so many people say about Tua, oh, he's just never going to be good, or, he doesn't have the arm strength, or he doesn't have this. And you hear the same exact stuff with Jalen Hurts. It's like Jalen Hurts doesn't have the arm strength. Jalen Hurts can't throw.
He was actually selected 5th overall.
Okay, it was 5th.
Yeah,
but I think
he would have probably gone over Joe Burrow as the 1st overall pick if he hadn't gotten injured.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I don't know. I'm at a loss because I think they're both so similar, and it's hard to explain why. I think the Miami Dolphins, if you want my honest opinion, the Dolphins have been on a upward trend longer than the Eagles. Whereas the Eagles kind of turned their season around quickly. The Eagles had a horrible season, and then last year they made the playoffs. Miami's been more of a kind of a slow build transition upwards, but Miami's done a great job rebuilding that team, and they've done the same things the Eagles have done. They've drafted a lot of offensive linemen. They've drafted a lot of defensive linemen, and they've built that defense through the draft. Mm-hmm. So I think both, not only are Hurts and Tua similar, I think the Eagles and Miami are similar in the way that their rosters are constructed and the way that they both have young – well, I wouldn't say Howie Roseman's young, but they both have savvy GMs I mean, Chris Greer's the GM in Miami,
Mhm.
and he's done a lot of good things for that, for that team. A franchise that, let's face it, Miami Dolphins have really not been successful since the 70s? I mean, obviously, Dan Marino, those teams were successful, but they've never won Super Bowls.
Yeah. Real quick, Casey saying, what Bama quarterback? To address this question, I didn't realize how bad. Like, we always talk about Ohio State quarterbacks fail in the NFL. Let me list the quarterbacks that have come out of Alabama in the last 30 years even. Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, Tua, A.J. McCarron was the last one before Tua to get drafted. Greg McElroy, who? Greg McElroy. He had one start in his career. A.J. McCarron's got 4 starts in his career. Brody Croyle was 0-10 in the NFL. I don't even know who Brody Croyle is. We can go Jay Barker, Mike Shula, Jeff Rutledge. That's going back to 1979.
Jeff Rutledge.
Yeah, Jeff Rutledge, the best quarterback probably out of Alabama, taken in the 17th round. There was a 17th round in 1956 in the draft. Yes, Bart Starr, that was the best quarterback ever to come out of, and Joe Namath. He had an okay career in the NFL as well. But that's it. Alabama has not had a very good track record coming out of, in the NFL and quarterbacks.
You could probably say that about a lot of college quarterbacks.
Yeah, but Alabama's like the gold star, the gold standard. But it's probably more so that they have such great wide receivers, running backs, offense and defensive line, defenses in general. Like, and one of, if not the best college coach of all time in Nick Saban. That's probably why they get that. It's more of a team and not necessarily about the quarterback there. I just think it's really interesting to compare their two careers and their stories. And George saying we don't watch a lot of Tua in Miami. I keep an eye on Miami. Personal reasons. My dad was a fan of the Dolphins growing up, so I keep an eye on them. And Tua, to me, I actually think has a higher ceiling than Jalen Hurts. But I think Tua also has a lower floor. I think I know what Jalen Hurts is. Jalen Hurts right now is the 12th, 13th, 14th best quarterback in the league. He might be able to get to 8, 9, 10. But Jalen Hurts can never be an elite guy. I think Tua could be an elite guy. The odds are slim, but I also think Tua could be out of the NFL in 2 to 3 years. Jalen Hurts will be in the NFL and have, barring an injury, a very long career. I think Tua could just completely bottom out and be gone. But, that's just me. I just think there's a bigger separation from ceiling and floor with Tua than there is with Jalen Hurts.
That's fair.
Yes, you heard me correctly there, George. Yes, you did. Absolutely.
I can't wait to have George on the show.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we're going up against this Dolphins team, and we talk about Tua. This defense has been playing against, in practice, a similar style quarterback in Jalen Hurts. But I'm really curious to see some of our ones, and the reports of our ones are James Bradbury's, our Darius Slay's going up against Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and whatnot. Can we have some form of a litmus test and an opinion formulated? It's practice, I know. But can we learn about this defense and in a practice against this is an elite offensive wide receiver tandem right there in Waddle and Tua.
They're top 3 easily, in my opinion. I mean,
and Jalen Waddle's going to be even better this year.
And
Tyreek Hill versus Devontae Parker. That's the difference from last year to this year. That's going to make Jalen Waddle even better.
And don't sleep on Mike Gesicki either, because the guy puts up 700 yards every year, and he's like, nobody even really notices or talks about him.
You're a fantasy guy. So am I. I've been waiting for the Mike Gesicki breakout season now, it feels like, for 100 years. I've always been trying to draft this guy the last 2 years. And he's good, but he doesn't seem to really pop yet. Maybe adding Tyreek Hill helps him pop a little bit.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you've talked about it, why you think A.J. Brown might not get the 1,000 yards, because you think maybe the other two might have better shots at that because of that. And that makes a lot of sense if you look at it. You listen, the fantasy fantasy community will tell you a lot of times the guys that are pegged as the wide receiver one don't always become or don't finish as the wide receiver one. I'm going to give you a bold take that probably nobody would believe. I think T. Higgins will finish ahead of Chase this year. I really do. I just think they have two elite guys. I think Miami's that same trek. Like Waddle, Tyreek going there is going to do numbers, just like getting A.J. Brown for Hurts is going to help the Eagles. Getting Tyreek to Miami is just going to – they're going to be a matchup nightmare. Tyreek Hill's what, the fastest wide receiver in the NFL?
I thought Quez Watkins was.
No, it's Tyreek. And I think Jalen Waddle is probably in the top 5. So they got two guys that can burn you. Like, I am definitely excited about seeing Slay and Bradbury up against those two. It's going to be a great and dude, they got Chase Edmonds out of the backfield too, who's a good, obviously he's going to catch a lot of passes.
Is there as much pressure on Tua or more pressure on Tua this year than Jalen Hurts? I mean, because Tyreek Hill, they spent a lot more money on Tyreek Hill than we did on A.J. Brown. And there has been kind of like the Philadelphia organization is very stable. The Miami Dolphins, on the other hand, lots of things going on down there between the Brian Flores situation, the ownership down there. Is there more pressure, or is that unstable environment kind of like because they invested that 5th overall pick? Tua's got this year, no question. Next year, Tua's got a longer leash because he was that 5th overall pick. Or do you think there's more pressure because he was that 5th overall pick?
Yeah, I think there's always more pressure. The higher you're drafted, the more pressure you're going to feel. I think we just live in a bubble here in Philly, so we always think that this is just the most pressure-packed environment, to play quarterback. And it could be true that's a fact because our fans are so – we hold people accountable. We hold our players accountable. We want accountability. We want results now. We're a results-based business. Like, we're result-based fans. We want that. We want fast. We want touchdowns. We want Jalen Hurts to all of a sudden go from here to here in a day. And it's not happening. I mean, George still to this day has had the perfect example where he said, Jalen Hurts needs to get from A to G and he's at, a D. Like, progression-wise. Like, and that's a great way to look at it. Like, but I think our fans want him to go from A to F in a day. And that's the way that we have that overreactive mentality. As it's our nature. It's impatience. It's exactly what it is.
But
I don't know. Patient people out there.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. But see, there's a lot of people that aren't, everybody says be patient, but then people aren't patient with Jalen Hurts. So there's a double-edged sword there. Like, I'm willing to give Jalen Hurts this year and even next year if he shows some signs of improvement. And George saying that Dolphins have no picks left, they have to have Tua work out. I could see them moving on from Tua if he doesn't work out, because I don't know how they'll figure it out financially, but there's something wrong in that Dolphins organization. I don't know if it gets fixed this year with Mike McDaniels in charge of the team now and whatnot. There's just something off on that whole organization as a whole at this point. So we got the joint practice. We've got, two teams, similar trajectories, different trajectories, whatever you want to say, both in divisions. Well, the Dolphins division, they got the Bills, but then the rest of the division is questionable. Where are you looking this weekend for the Eagles? Because I think there's two regions of this team where players on the fringe can play themselves this weekend and this week onto the roster. It's wide receiver and it's safety. Now, wide receiver, we could see whether Deion Kane or Britton Covey or Devin Allen play themselves onto the team or onto the practice squad. I'm looking at safety because I know the Jesse Bates talk. Jesse Bates can finally be put to bed. He went and he signed his franchise tag with Cincy. He has reported to camp. All right, I don't get Jesse Bates. But as we've talked about, as we've heard from multiple people that have come on this show, Kayvon Wallace is on the bubble. Even Jaquay Tart is on the bubble right now. Reed Blankenship has a legit shot to play his way onto this team. And they've got a couple other guys that have that Shazier, Blankenship. There's a lot of guys, and the new guy, Ugo Amadi, that could play both cornerback and safety. And you know the Eagles like that, flexibility in their secondary. Are you at all interested or intrigued by how this secondary, this safety room plays out this weekend? Because I really think Blankenship can bump either Kayvon Wallace or Tart off this roster by the end of this weekend.
See, now I've heard some reports that the guy to actually watch is Josiah Scott.
Yeah, well,
he's actually going from cornerback to safety, and that's where they're looking at him as being.
And because he can do both, that gives him another leg up.
Versatility to kind of play both positions. And you said that the Eagles do that a lot. Like, if you look at their offensive line, it's all the way, it's filtered throughout. Their whole offensive line is built that way. I think that the guy that I would probably say, Kayvon Wallace. I mean, I've been wanting this guy to make the team and make an impact forever. And here we are. It's like he's on the bubble. I mean, do you think he's getting cut?
I mean, I've heard from two people, one being Chris Franklin and another one, that there's a chance. And I was just going to bring this guy's name up in a second, George. Joby. There's a really strong chance. I read a report, Ed Kratz or Franklin, saying that Tay Gallen, the guy we traded for last year, might get the bump, and Joby might make that final cornerback spot. Yeah, I agree with George. I think Kayvon Wallace, unless he comes out. Look, I watched the entire preseason game last weekend, and Kayvon Wallace had a lot of snaps. And it's never a good sign, Jason, when there's a play, when there's a tackle, a big pileup, 5, 6, 7 yards past the line of scrimmage, and you see the pileup, and then 3 seconds later, you see Kayvon Wallace enter the picture. So Kayvon Wallace, at least 5 or 6 times last week, I saw enter the picture 3 seconds after the play was over. He was never anywhere near the ball. Now, that could be defensive play scheme on some of that. It could be he had an assignment in the back end of the field. But every single play, I did not see him make one play last week. I saw him catching up to the play after it was over. So to me, I think it's a lot easier for Howie Roseman to admit that mistake on a 4th-round pick than a Jalen Reagor or a Jalen Hurts or whatever, or a J-Jaw, someone drafted early in the draft. I think they don't want to lose Reed. I think they, just like they saw stuff in Marcus Epps in the previous years, and they kept them around so they wouldn't lose him. And now, look, he's probably going to be our starting number 1 safety. I think they see some of that in Reed Blankenship, and they don't want to lose him. Now, if they think they could squeeze him on the practice squad, then maybe they only cut one of Wallace or Tart. But they're going to try to keep these guys. And Kayvon Wallace, man, I think he's the first of the odd man out, in my opinion.
It just sucks because I love him. I mean, I loved him coming out. Let's put it that way.
His potential coming out.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't done anything for any of us to like him at this point in Eagles uniform.
No, and it's just a shame because it's a player that hasn't developed the way that he should have. And do you blame the Eagles for that? Because, I mean, does anybody who takes the blame? Is it all on Kayvon, or is it a lack of development at the position?
Can we digest into that for a second? Like, we have, what's his name? The best offensive, Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach in football, developing guys nonstop. Who's developing our safeties and our secondary? We literally traded for like 97 cornerbacks in the last 2 years. None of them have developed. Tay Gallen we traded for, he's probably getting cut. Zach McPherson's going to make the team, but he hasn't done anything to prove any development yet. Who's developing our secondary? We need to go out and find, outside of Marcus Epps, obviously, who seems to be developing pretty well. Who do We need to go out and get somebody that can sit these guys down and actually put that Jeff Stoutland stamp on these guys. We see our wide receivers developing somewhat. Quez Watkins taking step forwards. Maybe that's about it. Devin Allen and all these young guys that might make the team.
Jalen Reagor.
Hey, people want them. Who knows? Look, there's something lacking in the secondary development on this team. And maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe Kayvon Wallace goes elsewhere. I mean, we look at it. We've gotten rid of cornerbacks and safeties in the past. What was his name? Who went to Green Bay and had big plays last year? Not Sidney Jones. Sidney Jones went to Jaguars. He played okay there. The other guy, I wanted to say Malcolm Butler. What was the other guy that we traded that ended up having a pretty solid year last year? I forget. You know who I'm talking about.
He had 8 interceptions.
He had a bunch of interceptions last year. Anyway.
I'm looking it up.
Anyway, why are we not developing this position? And it's kind of concerning.
It is a concern.
And then these guys go and play, again, not necessarily better every time. Maddox has developed. He has. Maddox has developed a little bit, but I don't know. I'm just still trying to figure out who this other guy is. I'm stuck on him. Come on, guys. Who did we cut? And then went on and played really well. Rasul Douglas. I want to say Malcolm Douglas. Rasul Douglas went out. So maybe Kayvon Wallace gets cut. Maybe he plays better elsewhere and we kick ourselves. But if that's the case, then that's another sign that we're not doing something right there in the secondary. Or whoever's evaluating the secondary to bring these guys in is failing.
And back to George's thing, I don't think that, and maybe this is a counter argument to what you said, because I don't know what you said, but I don't think Avonte Maddox.
I said Avonte Maddox has developed. He's developed.
I don't know if he's necessarily developed. I think they just put him back at his position where he's better at. He didn't develop. He's not a good outside corner. He's a slot guy.
And it also helps. It also helps when you're playing opposite. Like Avonte Maddox now, he's in the slot. He's got Darius Slay on the outside. Steven Nelson didn't play great last year, but he didn't play as bad as people think. Him going from being an outside number 1 or 2 corner to being the third amongst other better corner. It's kind of like when Seattle, who was the dude we signed from Seattle? Gave all that big money to, and he was a bust. This is back during the Chip Kelly era. Byron Maxwell. Byron Maxwell was a product of a system. Avonte Maddox's success in the slot might be a product of having good cornerbacks opposite of him.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're wrong that he has gotten better as a player, but I don't think that's necessarily development. I think the Eagles do lack development at that position, the secondary. I think you're right. I think it's an example of it is the reason that we've had to trade for so many guys and get Darius Slay and then go out and sign the best free agent corners. Because whoever we're drafting, we're not developing them the way they should. Rasul's the perfect example. He goes to Green Bay and has 8 interceptions.
All right, George. So I was wrong. I evolve my opinions. Aren't I allowed to evolve my opinions? I'm always evolving my opinions. I'm always evolving. I like to evolve. Okay. And Maddox has developed a little bit, not as much, but a little bit. And that was last year, maybe. So my opinion could change from year to year. My opinion changed. Hey, I've been called a flip-flopper on social media. It's not that I flip-flop opinions. It's I evolve my opinion. I like to evolve. It's improving. It's getting better. It's becoming smarter. That is what it is. To address Mason, the Vikings fan, he brought it up earlier. Should we be trading for Kareem Hunt? Now, I know you're now on the Kenyon Drake bandwagon now, Jason. But first, I got to address the people that copied the morning show, Jacob Media. They didn't have a morning show. They saw our morning show. Now they do a morning show. Not as good as this morning show. But they put out a tweet. Who the hell is running their social media platform? How they're able to afford Mike Missinelli, Lane Johnson, all these people that they're bringing onto their network. Yet they're putting out tweets like they did yesterday or 2 days ago that the proposed trade with the Cleveland Browns is Gardner Minshew for Kareem Hunt and a second-round draft pick. What the hell is wrong with whoever they hired? Like, we want a social media intern or social media manager, someone to help us get stuff posted on all the social media sites. But guess what? We're going to evaluate that stuff before we let you post it.
Dude,
Who the hell is posting that?
it's an
Because that is
abomination.
probably one of the dumbest things I've ever seen posted on social media.
Who wouldn't make that trade?
Round pick for Gardner Minshew?
Yeah,
Of course we would take that trade.
Who wouldn't make that trade?
It's clickbait crap, but it's also so over the top bad that
It makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder who's running that organization there. George, was my Vontae Maddox stuff really 2 weeks ago? I don't know. It feels like it was 6 months ago. I don't know. You have to go back in the tape and find that one. Roll it back. Look, the Eagles definitely seem to be trending in the direction of needing another running back. We're not trading assets to get a running back. If you want to say Kenyon Drake was cut, bring him in maybe. I'm pretty sure Kenyon Drake has an injury history as well as Miles Sanders, as well as Kareem Hunt. That's not necessarily what we need. But I would not be surprised if the Eagles wait till final cutdown day, see who gets cut from all the teams, then makes a decision on what to do at the running back position.
Kenyon Drake, as you said, it's overrated that he has an injury history. He played 16 games 3 years in a row. Then he played 14 and then 15. And now last year was the only season he missed 4 games. He doesn't have a long history of injuries. He missed a game or two here or there. But he played 16 games 3 years in a row when he was with Miami. I think Kenyon Drake is actually still very young, and he's great out of the backfield. He provides actually a big body back, but he can catch the ball. He actually is to me, like I said, I know I wanted Kareem Hunt. I still want Kareem Hunt if it's the right price. Mm-hmm. But to George's point, I'm probably wrong. It's probably going to be higher than what I'm thinking, and other teams will probably give up more, and that's fine. You can get Kenyon Drake for free right now. To me, I think it's a no-brainer, whether or not he has a little bit of an injury history. To me,
but why was he cut then?
Because I'm going to tell you why he was cut. Okay. Because they have Josh Jacobs, who's basically he can be a bell cow. Josh Jacobs, every year, Josh Jacobs in the fantasy community, they're like, "Oh, drop Josh Jacobs. He's not going to be the running back." And every year he puts up 1,000 yards. They have that. And they drafted this young kid that they really like. They drafted Zamir White. I think it was a cap savings. That's why they cut him. And
so George is saying here they're not going to bring anyone in unless Sanders cannot go at all. I think that if Sanders does not practice today, tomorrow, or play in the game on Saturday, that's when you have to have that red flag. This is one of those key things to watch in this joint practice week here. Because at first it was, we're just being cautious with Miles Sanders. And then we heard it again. We're still just being cautious. Well, if he doesn't practice at all this week, then come on. At some point you have to say, maybe he can't go. Maybe this injury is a little bit worse than we thought. And then so if he does not play by the end of this week, then you definitely need to start considering. You're going to see a lot of cuts start to trickle down Saturday, Sunday, Monday next week. That's when you start looking. I don't think you bring in Kenyon Drake yet, but if Miles Sanders I agree with George. If he can't go at all, I'm concerned if he does not step on the practice field at all this week.
I am so tired of Miles Sanders, man. I really am. Like, it's just frustrating.
Y'all should have agreed and traded him, like I said, like 2 years ago.
It's just frustrating. Every year he's supposed to be our running back one, and every year it's a question if he's going to be healthy. Every single freaking year.
I said it before. On paper and college film, I actually thought Miles Sanders was more talented than Saquon Barkley.
He has the talent.
He has the talent on paper and in theory to be better. But the guy's just got – it's not just one thing. It's the injury. It's the mental side. It's the drops. It's the fumbles. It's the he's a home run hitter, but then he also goes 7 straight runs with negative yards. Like, there's so many things. Just there's something missing. And again, we talk about so many players needing a change of scenery. I wonder if Miles Sanders is a guy that needs a change of scenery. That going elsewhere might benefit him, the person, and his career.
I think there might be more smoke to that Kareem Hunt thing than we're thinking. Because it could be why the Eagles are in on Kareem Hunt. They might be looking to move Miles as well. You had said that on the show that if you did get Kareem Hunt, why would you keep Miles? Like, maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they're thinking, okay, Kareem Hunt, yes, he does have some injuries, but I wouldn't say his injuries are to the extent of Miles Sanders. And as I said, if you could get him for the right price, I'm not giving up a second-round pick. Obviously, I'm not going to be an idiot and just. But I don't know what the market is. From what I read, the report that I read said the market is a 5th-round pick. So I don't know, man.
If I'm giving up a 5th-round pick for Kareem Hunt and then turning around and trading Miles Sanders for a 4th, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I do that. I don't know. Maybe you do a Kareem Hunt for Miles Sanders swap. I don't know. I really don't know. This running back conversation is one I just didn't think we'd be having.
Want to have? I know.
Well, no, I did want to have because I've been talking about trading Miles Sanders for years now, and everyone
didn't think we were going to have the conversation.
I didn't think we had to have the conversation because I thought it was. I knew from the beginning of this training camp that safety was the question mark. The back end of the wide receivers was the next question. The offensive line, what to do with Andre Dillard. I knew that was a question. I did not think, like I wanted to think it because I'm not a fan of having Miles Sanders on this team. I just thought that the Eagles were so set that they wouldn't let this be a question, but they're letting it be a question. They're letting it linger way too long. George saying he wouldn't give up more than a 6th, 6th. That's negligible, but I get it. All right, we're gonna wrap up Trending the AM right there with this. We're gonna pick up this conversation tomorrow because we're gonna get more information from, the first joint practice today goes down today. Obviously,
going right now.
Oh, it's already going on. All right, so within an hour we'll know some of the details of what's going on at joint practice. We'll recap it tomorrow. We'll recap more practice on Friday. We'll talk Phillies. We got lots happening here on DSM Media, so don't go anywhere. Again, if you're watching on replay, like and subscribe, drop comments, follow us on all DSM Media social media platforms. We would greatly appreciate it. For my main man, Jason Voorhees, I am Phil Stifle. Everybody have a great Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. sharp.